Please subscribe and click the hype and like button to get more content like this. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. Everything demonstrated in this video is strictly for educational purposes. To show you how to protect yourself, all demonstrations are performed in a controlled lab environment on our own testing devices. We never target real users, and using this knowledge to gain unauthorized access to actual people or systems is strictly illegal and unethical.
In this video, we're going to go over how we can use the Nmap Scripting Engine. To get started, we first need to download Nmap. To do that, you can navigate to the URL seen at the top of my screen, which is nmap.org/download.html. And then, in the middle box on the screen, you can click on the distribution that you want to get Nmap for. In this case, we're going to click on Windows, and that takes us to the Windows section, where we can download the self-installer. So we click on nmap-7.95-setup.exe, and once our download completes, we'll click on Open File. Next, we'll run through the installation procedure. And now that Nmap has been installed, we can open up a PowerShell terminal and use Nmap via the Nmap command. If we type Nmap into the terminal, we can see that it outputs various usages for Nmap along with the flags and options we can pass to those usages. If we scroll down in this, we can see that there is a section called Script Scan. Script Scan is where we can use the Nmap Scripting Engine. So we have a variety of options that we can use within the script scan capabilities. And these are some of the script flags that we're going to be working with today. So to work with the Nmap Scripting Engine, we're going to be using this --script command, and we're also going to be using this -sv command for service and version detection, which will help us probe open ports to determine service version and info. And what we're going to start with is a vulnerability scan to look through the vulnerability database and see if those vulnerabilities are present on a system. And we're going to use localhost for this, so I'm going to run nmap-sv --script vuln localhost, or 127.0.0.1. And now we're using the Nmap Scripting Engine to run a vulnerability scan on the local system. Now that our vulnerability scan has completed, we can look at the results. First, because we used the -sv flag, we did a port scan to see what kind of services and ports are open on the host, and that's what we get here in the first part of the results, which gives us a list of ports, whether they're open, closed, or what state they're in, the service that typically runs on those ports, and any versions that were able to be found on those ports. If we scroll down to the bottom, we can see where the Nmap Scripting Engine results came in under the host script results section. And here we can see a list of 3 vulnerabilities that were potentially found on the system. And we found SMB vuln MS10-061, Samba vuln CVE 2012-1182, SMB vuln MS10-054. Now, in this case, these are not indicating that these vulnerabilities are present on the system necessarily, but rather indicating which vulnerability checks were done and what the results were. So in the case of the first 2, where we have results like failed to receive bytes, this is telling us that the vulnerability scanner tried to check for these vulnerabilities, but couldn't establish a connection to the SMB service. Most likely, this is because the SMB service is not running on this host, so we're unlikely to be affected by these vulnerabilities. In the last case, the result is false, which is telling us that in all likelihood, this host is not susceptible to this vulnerability. So these are how we can interpret the results from the host script. Now in this case, we use the built-in vuln scripts, but we can also use external scripts from other resources to run more robust scans or different functionalities. So let's add some external scripts into our environment. First, we're going to navigate to the location where we want to install the scripts. Because we installed this on Windows, we are going to put our scripts into C Program Files x86 Nmap Scripts. So in your terminal, use the command cd followed by the path to the scripts folder, and then we can use git to clone the repository of the scripts that we want to pull in. In this case, we're going to use the vulners repository, so we'll use the command git clone https://github.com/vulnerscom/nmap-vulners.git. Now we can use this nmap vulners script that we've just pulled in. This is also going to be a vulnerability scanner, but the difference between the built-in vuln script and the vulners script that we just pulled in is that they will use different vulnerability databases to try and find vulnerabilities on a system. Vuln will use an internal database built into Nmap, whereas vulners will use its own external vulners database. So to use the script, we're going to use a very similar command that we used previously. We're going to start with nmap-sv-script, and then we're going to pass it the folder for nmap vulners that we just cloned, and then the target, which will still be localhost or 127.0.0.1. Now we're running a vulnerability scan again, but using the new scripts that we just pulled in. And once again, the first part of the results are the same, with the -sv output, and at the bottom, we don't have any output, meaning that no vulnerabilities were found by the Nmap vulners database. There are a huge number of scripts available within the Nmap scripting engine. And if we do an ls inside of this folder that we navigated into, we can see an output of some of the scripts that we have available to us. So by doing ls, I can see that right here is the vulners script that we just pulled in, and I can scroll up through this list of scripts to see all of the ones that are available to me. And there's a huge number of scripts that we can pull through. One thing to notice is that there's no direct vuln script to map back to the command that we used originally. And that's because vuln isn't a specific script, but rather a keyword that sets a predefined category to which scripts belong. So in this case, vuln means all scripts that are associated with the vulnerability scanning or vulnerability discovery portions of Nmap. So when we used the vuln command, we actually ran a number of different scripts to check for vulnerabilities. So this is how we can use the Nmap scripting engine to try and perform reconnaissance on a system.